All right, I am headed out to check on one of our cows to look for signs of heat. Fingers crossed that I'm seeing what I'm looking for, but man, it's just been a tough year to track heat cycles. I'm Kelsey from RoughandTumbleFarmhouse.com, and today I'm going to talk to you about how to tell if your cow is in heat. First of all, let me apologize for the guineas in the background. They are my husband's, so I don't claim any sort of responsibility. Well, the rooster I can claim responsibility for, but for the guineas I claim absolutely no responsibility for their behavior. To start off with, what is heat? So when a cow is in heat, that means that they have reached the window in which they can be bred. So you have a pretty small shot every single month. It's typically anywhere between every 19 to 24 days, with 21 being the average, that your cow is going to come into heat. It's also called estrus. So what's happening is your cow has an egg that has been released that can now be fertilized. And the time frame that you have to get your cow bred is pretty small. It can be anywhere between 12 and 24 hours. Sometimes it's a little bit longer, but it's typically a pretty small window in which you have to get your cow bred. And I was so hoping when I was going to make this video that we would have a really obvious, clear heat that I could show you. But my girls have been really just hit or miss this summer. There are definitely some things that can affect your cow's length of their heat cycle and also how much they're showing symptoms of being in heat, which can make it really tricky. This summer was very, very hot here in Minnesota. We had tons of days that were in the high 80s into the 90s. It was just a really miserable summer temperature wise. So that can affect how much your cow is actually displaying signs of heat. So as soon as the cows have calved, I will start paying attention, looking for those signs of heat in a cow. So every single day I'm out there looking for a few main things. We'll go over those in just a minute. And then if I even think the cow is in heat, here I'll show you my calendar. I'll put down their name with a question mark. I might put down some notes, like I have here Juneberry Moo with a question mark, because Juneberry typically isn't a very mooey cow, but she can get mooey when she is in heat. That's one of the signs you can sometimes see. From there, if I think a cow might be in heat, I'll make a little note, and then I will count ahead about 19 days, put a little note on the calendar, usually like with a line, so 19 to 24 days, to make sure I'm checking that animal for signs of heat again. So I like to start again as soon as they've had their calf. I want to have, as best I can, a really good knowledge of, okay, they have a 19-day heat on the button every time, or sometimes they vary in their heat length. So that way when it comes time towards the end of summer into fall, I'm ready for breeding. Now here at our farm, we have just our 2 mama jerseys, and so we do artificial insemination. It doesn't make sense for us to have a bull. And one of the downsides to AI, unless you are doing it a lot or you've gone to the training to learn how to do it, you typically have to have an AI technician come out and do it. We have someone who's been a friend for years that has a dairy farm that the grandma cow or mom cow, the cow that started our whole herd, came from his farm, and so he's just kind enough to come out and do the AI for us. But he lives about a half hour away, and so it's really important for me that I am keeping steady track of my cow's heat cycles. So hopefully I don't have him make the whole trip out here and it turns out, oh, they might not quite be ready or they may have just passed it. And so it's really important to watch for those symptoms and to get it right on the money if you can. So what are some things you look for to know if your cow is in heat? Well, there are many different signs that people kind of go by. There are 3 main ones that I look for that my cows tend to display. One of the first ones is jumping on other cows or other cows jumping on them. Now, for the most part, people will always say that other cows will jump on them and they'll hold still. That's called a standing heat. But my cows maybe miss the memo, and when they're in heat, they tend to jump on other cows. So if I see some mounting behavior, that's typically indicative of the fact that somebody is in heat. So if I see that, the next thing that I look for is I take a look at their vulva, which is something that my husband and my family is so sick of me talking about cow vulvas, and hopefully YouTube doesn't like get rid of my channel because of me talking about this, but it's a great indicator of heat. It's something, if you're learning how to recognize heats or you're kind of trying to pay attention to it, going out and checking your cow's rear end every single day so you know what it typically looks like, and then you'll be aware of when something has changed. So it typically will get kind of swollen, a little bit puffy looking, and then one of the really key indicators is seeing some sort of a mucousy discharge. So it's kind of the consistency of like snot or something, or almost like that slime that kids play with sometimes. That's a really good indicator that your animal is in heat. Another thing, like I already mentioned before, is watching out for mooing or listening for mooing. Some cows, especially if you just have maybe the one family milk cow, can be really, really obnoxious when they're in heat. Juneberry, when we had just her and she had a couple of sheep friends basically, when she was in heat, she would go and stand at the gate and just beller all day long, trying to attract a guy from anywhere to come visit. Of course, it didn't work unless we wanted it to, but so it was very obvious when she was in heat. So that's another thing you can look for. Some other signs that you can look for in terms of your animal being in heat is that they can just be a real butthead. Our cows are typically pretty chill animals, but when they are in heat or going to be in heat, they can be cranky, they can be pushy, they can be obnoxious. So those are some things you can look for as well. Juneberry a lot of times will get really affectionate the day she is in heat and be just a total jerk the days on either side. So if your cow just wants to be all up in your business, they may even try and jump on you as well. Those are some other clear signs of heat. So backing up just a little bit in terms of checking out your cow's rear end, one more thing I would recommend doing, it's not exactly fun, but it looks like things are kind of puffy and maybe a little bit swollen. I recommend just going ahead, getting in there a little bit closer and just opening up their vulva a little bit and looking to see, because that can really help you. If nothing's really showing on the outside, you can see the inside a little bit might have more of that mucousy sort of discharge in there, which again is a really good indicator. So once you've determined that your cow is in heat, you want to get your AI technician out as soon as possible to get them bred, and then pay attention over the next few days if there's any signs of bleeding or things like that, then it maybe didn't quite stick. And then again, just mark on the calendar when you've got the 19 to 24 days away, and then pay attention for more signs of heat. And that is really the first chance that you will get to re-inseminate your animal, is just by looking for signs of heat, because you can't really do preg testing, I believe, until around 30 days. So that's as soon as you can check, as just looking for those symptoms. At that point, you can test their milk. If they're in milk, you can also do blood tests. And once they hit closer to around that 3-month mark, you can have a vet come out and actually reach in and feel for the developing fetus. Now, if your cow is not coming into heat, or you're having a really hard time tracking their cycles, there are some hormone injections you can give your animals with a prostaglandin is what it's called. There's different brands of it. And so that's something that you definitely want to consult with your vet before administering to your cow. It's something too, if you are pregnant like I am, you should not be handling those things, because it can cause complications and things with your own pregnancy, or if you're trying to get pregnant. And also if you're breastfeeding, those are some things that you want to be a little wary of and have someone else handle those things. So there are ways that if you give the injections, it can help stimulate heat in your animal within a certain amount of days from giving the injection. Hoping we don't have to with our heifer here. She's a first-year heifer. She definitely has hard symptoms. She definitely is not very obvious when she is in heat, which is a real pain in the butt. But hopefully today, when I get out there, I will see what I am looking for, and then we can go from there. More thing to talk about too, in terms of being able to tell if your animal is in heat, they do have these little patches that you can put on the back of your cow that are sensitive to animals kind of jumping on them. I believe that they're somehow like a heat sensitive, or maybe it being touch sensitive sort of thing, where when your cow is mounted by another cow, it will change the color of the patch, so you can tell that other animals have been jumping on it if you're not out here all day long paying attention. And so again, for my cows, because they tend to want to mount other cows as opposed to be mounted, I haven't gotten those before to see how well that would work, but that is something you could use too as a tool. All right, so that's all I've got for you today. Hopefully that helps if you have your own little homestead dairy and you're trying to get your animal bred. Hopefully that will help you get it done. You can check out the blog post below, because I always forget things in these videos. There's more details in the blog post. And of course, you can always find 2 new posts over on the blog and a new video here every single week about farming, family food, and fortitude here at our Rough and Tumble farmhouse.